Edward Rutledge was the first of the South Carolina delegation to affix his name to the immortal document of the Declaration of Independence. He was at this time only, I'm not going to tell you how old.
Edward Rutledge.
Edward Rutledge.
Edward Rutledge.
Edward Rutledge was born November 23, 1749, in Charleston, South Carolina. At the age of 20 years old, Edward went to study law in London's Inn of Courts, just like his two older brothers did. Edward Rutledge returned back to South Carolina in 1773, and he began practicing law. At this point, he built himself a really good reputation for being eloquent and well-spoken for one that was such a young lawyer. This reputation ended up serving him quite well as he got appointed to the Continental Congress in 1774. That is a very high honor for someone so young. How young? Still not going to tell you. But since he was such a young man at the time of his appointment, his presence at the 1776 Congress was fairly controversial. In fact, it was John Adams who considered him to be a peacock who just wasted his time debating on points of little consequence. Well, Benjamin Rush, however, thought that Rutledge was very sensible for someone so young, and he was also very useful in Congress. But he also remarked that he had great volubility in his speaking. He strongly opposed independence from Great Britain during this time, but he's the one that encouraged the rest of South Carolina to vote for the independence on July 2nd, 1776, so that they could maintain a unity with all of the other colonies. And so, on July 4th, 1776, he became the youngest signer of the Declaration of Independence at the young age of, still not going to tell you. And his brother-in-law, Arthur Middleton, also signed the Declaration of Independence. It was in September of 1776 that Edward Rutledge, John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin were all selected by Congress to attend a meeting with Lord Howe. Well, the meeting went quite well, but nothing came of it. And after that meeting, Edward Rutledge wrote to his close friend, George Washington. He greatly admired George Washington, and he wanted to tell him about the meeting he had just attended. He said this: "I must beg leave to inform you that our conference has been attended to with no immediate advantages. He declared to us that he had no powers to consider us an independent states. Our reliance, therefore, continues to be under God and on your wisdom and your fortitude and that of your forces, that you may be as successful as I know you are worthy, is my most sincere wish. God bless you, my dear sir. Your most affectionate friend, E. Rutledge." Well, in November of 1776, he joined the Charleston Battalion Artillery. He was engaging in several very, very important battles, and he attained the rank of captain while he was defending his colony. In 1780, when the British took control of Charleston, he was captured and he was held prisoner in a Florida camp for nearly a year. In 1798, he was elected governor of South Carolina. 2 years into that office, Governor Rutledge was attending an important meeting in Columbia, South Carolina. During that meeting, he became very ill due to his exposure to the rain and the cold, and his gout was worsening. He had to leave the meeting early. After arriving back home and having recently heard of the passing of his dear good friend, George Washington, Rutledge died of a stroke on January 23rd, 1800, at the young age of 50 years old. Charles Goodrich writes of Edward Rutledge, both in his public and his private character, Mr. Rutledge was adorned with many virtues. In his disposition, he was uncommonly benevolent. He entered with great feeling into the sufferings of his fellow men, and he felt it not only his duty, but also his pleasure to administer to their necessities. His deeds of kindness were very many, and they were widely extended, and are all still remembered with affectionate gratitude. In his person, Mr. Rutledge was above middle size and of a florid but fair complexion. His countenance expressed great animation, and on account of his intelligence and his benevolent aspect, he was universally admired. Edward expressed his opinions very freely and was never afraid to stand up for what he believed in, all the while building strong friendships with his fellow founding fathers who cared for him very deeply. Overall, Edward Rutledge displayed many attributes, that would just describe a true friend. Now that's something that we can all appreciate. So how old was Edward Rutledge at the signing of the Declaration of Independence? 26 years old. Wow. The end.